Luther Kruger here, Big Blue Sun Museum of Solar Cooking in Minneapolis. Stephen Thomas.
Every day.
Here with us at, what do you call the place anyway? Not Permies.com, that's the website. But what do you call this this farm, this facility?
This is Wheaten Labs.
Wheaten Labs, okay.
Yeah, way out in western Montana.
And there's, I was thinking on drive here, you're kind of a think tank for permaculture, educational center, and you promote the best practices and test the best practices for self-reliability and sustainability, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is sort of like one of the things that Paul likes to do is conduct experiments. That's how he earned this place. He called this place Wheaton Labs.
Yes.
So a lot of things that are tried here are like the first iteration of something, and then we'll go ahead and the next year we have our summer event, we'll go ahead and improve it a little bit, or I'm a part of the boot team, we'll go ahead and do some sort of improvement on something, and we'll gradually perfect them, and like build the efficiency, so that the function is perfect, and then we work on form after that.
That's form follows function. The function first.
Function first.
Yes.
Then you beautify things after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, you want to make sure it works right first.
Kind of the opposite of Steve Jobs. It's like it's got to be beautiful, and then make it work well.
That's that sort of thing.
Sure.
But here at Wheaten Labs, it's a little different. We might start off with a big clunky thing, and then pare things down, or like we make our observations and like, okay, we can optimize this. We can change the materials for this. We can change where the airflow is going in, or something of that nature, to further perfect it and make it an easier machine to use, and then make it a more effective machine to use at the same time. So those are the two ways that things are optimized around here.
Sure. Well, as you know, I'm kind of deep into it in an insane maniacal level, solar cooking. But all of us that are into it, we're trying to figure out a short, good way to call it solar food processing or food something, because we of course we embrace solar food growing. Anything solar thermal, it just tugs the heartstrings. And so and solar dryers. I mean, I want to set up something like this, except I got about a 20 by 40 foot urban backyard. But I'm thinking if I have something like this, I could get my neighbors to dry some of their stuff, because watch them do vegetables too. So we got a couple solar dryers here. You want to kick this off start with this one?
Certainly.
That's what it's all about.
So this is the first style that I had ever heard of, and we still use it today. The point behind it is that we have a dark surface here, and it heats up the air inside, and the air ends up being pushed into there. And I'll show you inside there in a moment. But more air comes in the bottom because there's this thing called the thermal siphon. And the idea behind that is that hot air is going to rise, cool air is going to sink. And we're using that to our advantage, so we can keep the air moving past our food, or whatever we have drying inside there. So what we're looking at here, this is the first path of the air. It's going to come in the bottom, it warms up in this chamber, and this is a glass-covered chamber here. You talked about obtainium earlier.
Yes.
These are salvaged pieces of plate glass.
A+.
And we use those to cover this up, so plenty of sun can come through, but it didn't cost us an arm and a leg to make that happen. So that the air travels up here as it heats, and then the column in the back is where all the different racks for food are kept. And what happens is the air is actually forced downward, because the chimney to exhaust from here, you might be able to see it up there, but it's another screen-covered thing, pretty much similar to this.
Yeah.
That is where the exhaust happens. So air is heated up here again, and hot air is going to rise. It's going to keep going up that way, which again is going to be forcing the air to pass through the food, and then go into the chimney. The opening for the chimney is actually at the bottom, which is wild. Did you want to take a look inside?
Yes. In fact, I'll get the one camera since that's.
Anyway, okay. So this is the side where the cabinet is. That's our little latch. Let's see. So in here, so I mentioned that the air is heated. It comes up here. There's an opening in here, and that allows the air to start to fill in the cabinet as it heats up. Now the exhaust for this cabinet is down here at the bottom. So what we have happening is hot air is air is constantly being heated and then moved upward. So air is crowding is crowding up in the top of the cabinet here. As more air comes in, it reaches the exhaust. And remember, this is also a heating cabinet, but there's no food up there or anything. It's actually separate from this area here. Hot air is being air is being heated up as it comes up here, and this is the top of the chimney, and it exhausts out the top up there finally. So what we have is that thermal siphon. Air is just constantly moving in, traveling down through the food that's in here into the exhaust port at the bottom, and then finally there's the chimney's kind of a narrow space here, but it goes straight up into this cabinet and then finally out the exhaust up there.
And that's counterintuitive. You think, let's get the heat to start at the bottom and take the moisture out. But this is, like you say, that's one thing where I slept through science. I would not be able to follow much of what you said, except that I've been looking at these designs for a while.
The thing about the climate here is that it's really arid. I came from Maryland, so I was not used to that at all. So you go outside, it's like a hot, wet blanket is thrown on you in the summertime. Over here, very different story. If you're in the shade, you're nice and cool, no matter what time of day it is, no matter how hot the sun is. But once something is out in the sun and it's staying there, it is going to heat up big time. And that's the principle behind something like this. You just put your food in here, and you kind of forget about it for the day. You let the sun do the work for you.
Is it typical where you load it up and then at the end of the day it's dried, or you sometimes have to go more?
I would say like 2 days is the average.
Okay.
It all depends on what you're trying to dry. And I can show you a couple things that we have dried if you want to take a look.
Sure.
So we have recently upped. Oh, these are both sun chokes, for example. We've upped our preservation game since now that we have a new well that was installed for this past summer. So we have some sun chokes here. We dried corn, which is mainly for seed. We want to start raising animals here eventually. We've dried potatoes that we've grown here, and this is very recent rhubarb. I think
rhubarb.
this is from a couple days ago.
Sure.
We finished.
Yeah,
we're eating jam for every breakfast and dinner. So rhubarb jam is on our list. We're definitely working on dehydrating more, preserving more of our harvest. I mean, one of Paul's goals here is to be able to feed boots like myself, the folks who come and live and work here. Like 70% of our food, if not all of it, is generated here and preserved here and so on. Preservation is going to be key for that to happen.
Yes.
So our growing season is not the longest around here. But we have plenty of time to preserve stuff. The sun stays up for quite some time during the day in the summertime, so we can focus a lot of our efforts on preserving our harvest for the long term. Dehydration is one of the things that me personally I'm big on, and I'm glad that we have these two machines here to mess around with and keep things going.
Sure. But do you get a lot of those where they're like the preppers for the doomsday, or just people that just they got their farm and they're thinking, I want to do it wiser and so forth?
I would say the second style of person is more who comes here.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of people end up hearing about the Permies website first,
Yes.
which is it's a pretty fantastic community of its own right. And then one of the big things that happens every summer is our PTJ. It's the Permaculture Technology Jamboree.
Wow.
So people come out here, and things like this are built during the PTJ. A lot of those folks are already, really into the Permy scene, not necessarily the doomer or prepper scene. That's actually one of the first things I learned was there were a group of people who were like, oh, the world is going to end on such and such a date, so we need to be ready for it, or the government's going to be illegitimate and we need to fight back, etc., and be ready to do it. So that was sort of my entry point into, oh, this is what food preservation can help you do.
Yes.
If zombies really do happen, then we can just hole ourselves up and we'll be protected.
Sure.
So preservation, whether it is fermentation or dehydration, those are things that are going to help you live for the long term with very little resources to help you cook.
Yeah.
You know, for example. So that stuff has always been fascinating to me. And but to answer your question, I'd say more of the friendly side of things.
Sure,
you know,
sure.
people who and the people who want to work with these, it's like, wow, this is a thing where I can get my own harvest preserved. You know, they're thinking more about providing food for their families or for themselves in the long term, cutting their costs, because you know, when you have your own harvest, you don't have to eat it right away.
Yeah,
You can
exactly.
save it and preserve it in so many different ways. Dehydration is a major one of that. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think that pretty well covered this one, and it's definitely a model that, like I say, it's counterintuitive. I think people that are brand new to it wouldn't think of the balancing factor though. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, in the case of this piece of technology, I think that the upper chamber, and again, this is all painted black on the inside.
Sure.
So this heats up air as well, and that provides some of that hot air motion to get out to help keep that thermal siphon moving the direction you want it to go, instead of you know, everything, all the moisture collecting in there.
Sure.
Yeah, I've never encountered that kind of problem. But again, we might be in a unique situation where we have a really arid climate here, especially in the summertime. But you know, year round, it's like sun goes down, humidity goes up, and the temperature goes down.
Yeah.
When the sun comes up over those mountains, humidity almost disappears and the temperature starts to climb. So those things are working to our advantage in here. I would say that, you know, depending on the climate, you're going to have different levels of effectiveness with this particular model.
Sure.
However, the other one I do want to show you kind of what do you call it, mitigates those kinds of issues.
Okay.
I use it in the winter time too.
Oh yeah. Okay. Put this guy there.
Oh, hey, that's right. We have stuff in here right now. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'll show you that. Right now we have some more rhubarb in there, and we have some, what is that? Oh, a stinging nettle in there.
Okay.
I want some fresh nettle tea.
Oh yeah.
So-
I remember reading about how that's one of the best teas you can have. We got
Oh man, I love the stuff. I love it.
Okay. So now we got another dehydrator here,
Yes.
and wow,
Yeah.
this is
something
complicated.
that most of your viewers probably haven't seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Wheaton is very, very big on rocket mass heater technology. And what they did one year at PTJ was they combined dehydration with rocket mass heaters. So I don't want to bore you with the whole technology of what a rocket mass heater is, but essentially what you have is you have a heating element in here that doesn't necessarily have to depend on the sun. However, if you look at the front, we do have the glass front, just like we had on the previous machine, but there are rocks in there instead of these panels, and that's because the rocks are absorbing heat from the heater that is fired up in here. So, like, say for example, it's sundown and our food's not dry yet, but we want it dry as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll set a fire at sundown, and you know, we'll close this cabinet up. And what happens is, all through the night, while the sun is still on the other side of the planet, these rocks are absorbing, and then they are releasing the heat. So the same principle applies, except that you don't have to have the sun up to do things. We've got the air moving in here. We have that same cabinet in the front. The angle's a little more acute. No, I'm sorry. It's wider than this one. But it's because we have the heater, the rocket mass heater inside there. But air still flows the same. It still comes down from there. The exhaust is down here at the bottom. This back side here is where it comes up, and actually the screen is up there close to the chimney. Now the really cool thing about this is that you might think that, I mean, the chimney's up there, but that's for some of the exhaust from the heater. The exhaust from the heater and the air that's heated up and brought through the food is kept separate. So you're not going to get any kind of like a smoke flavor or soot or anything like that.
Yeah.
As you're dehydrating your food. And again, we have some more rhubarb in here. We have some stinging nettle leaves. I think that's all we have in here right now.
Yeah.
But again, we use this in the winter time because we'll dig sunchokes out of the ground, or the rhubarb might still be going and there's snow coming down. So we're like, oh, let's go ahead and preserve some of this stuff right away. and we'll go ahead and drop it in here.
Sure.
Fire it up, even in the in the morning, even if it's clear day, because it's so cold outside.
Yeah.
We want to take advantage of the rocket boosting thing to speed up the dehydration process.
Sure. So this would be like in Minnesota. This would be the thing to get. I mean, we're in the same boat that way. We call it the variety weather belt.
Oh yeah. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're kind of lucky in Big Sky Country.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul has a big chunk of land out here, so we're able to carry out all sorts of experiments, including stuff like this.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, I've seen this kind of thing in other places. I really couldn't tell you exactly where, but this is not the only place that has used this model of dehydrator. I think this is one of the first large-scale ones that I've ever seen.
Sure.
And I've never seen a rocket-boosted one until I came here. But again, I use this one in the wintertime. I think it's fantastic. And we're using it right now because we're just at the beginning of our growing season, and we're still, I think our last frost was maybe like this past Sunday.
Oh yeah.
So we're easing out of the winter cold season. I call it the building season around here. Now we're going into the growing season.
There you go.
And trying to preserve more of that harvest, and of course we're making jam, and I like eating rhubarb candy.
Oh yes.
So,
Yes. If we could do a walk around, the first question I have is: this has to be some kind of sealing up with, is that like straw?
Oh, okay. This is a natural building material.
Yeah.
All right. This is called cob. You could also say it's adobe. The idea behind it is that you build with the materials that are around you.
Yes.
So this cob is from local sand, local clay, local organic straw. And you sort of mix it all together with water in different proportions depending on what you want to build. And this is a perfect building material. So long as you have a roof that hangs over top of it, that doesn't let the precipitation dissolve it, then you're going to have perfectly acceptable steel for certainly for something like this. But I mean, people build their homes out of adobe. And depending on your climate, and again, as long as you have a big enough lip over on your roof, then adobe lasts just as long as nearly any other building material.
You've only been building with it for 2, 3, 5, 10,000. How many thousands of years?
And we still see those buildings today. Because they are extant. Today you can visit them and see, wow, that's a really great building material.
Yeah. Well, and so now this kind of siding, it looks like are they like pallet slats or what are they?
We have a solar-powered sawmill here, and these are from trees that are on our land, and we'll go ahead and fire up the sawmill and make planks. We don't use plywood here because plywood's full of glues and toxic gick, and we don't want to use any of that stuff. So we'll go ahead and fell trees on our land, mill them to this size, let them dry a little bit, and then we can use them as building materials here.
Sure.
So,
cool. Yeah. Okay, and the other side is a lot like this, except no doors, I bet.
Yeah. And again, I know for a fact that these panels were milled here, but maybe not these. This looks like a 2x6. Maybe that's just the dimensional lumber that we use to frame it, like typical hardware store. But the panels are just on the outside. We put panels on the roof, and then we gave everything a good coating of raw linseed oil, and that helps waterproof it and make it weather resistant. So that the snow doesn't affect the wood too much, and that the sun doesn't bake it as severely.
Sure. And then the rocks. Where'd the rocks come from?
Hey, this is. I mean, what is on the horizon over there? This, and in fact, this piece of property, like if you look where the house is up there on the hill, it is just one big chunk of bedrock.
Sure.
But we have rocks all over the place here. Again, we're building with local natural materials, things we don't have to go anywhere to find them. And I think there's like just an ash-based paint that is coating this stuff. Now, I wasn't here for the build of this, but I've seen other projects that use the same thing. Sometimes we'll use a milk paint, and or we'll have a lime plaster coating over things to brighten it up. But this is probably based on like soot or ash or something like that to give a black cast to the rocks that are here. That's my guess. So I don't know for sure, but that's based on what I know about how we build things here, chances are that's what it is.
I would guess so too. Yeah.
So it's just piled up with rocks. The goal of piling up so many rocks is that as heat is generated in the firebox in there, the rocks will absorb that heat. So even after the fire is done, there's still a lot of heat trapped in here, and it will travel up and dry off all the food as the air is pushed through it. Same principle as that. It's just that instead of the sun powering things, we use local wood. And again, we're working on local materials,
Absolutely.
no toxic gick.
Yep.
You know, that's the goal around here. You want to live a luxurious life,
Yep.
but not at a tremendous cost
Yeah.
to everything else around you.
Exactly.
You don't want to offset your luxury, which I think is what's being pushed these days.
Yeah.
Which is really unfortunate. And I don't want to get into that too much.
No, that's
But that's why we want these kinds of ideas to be out there in the world. It's like people could do this kind of stuff in their own homes, and it's not like you're messing up a building code or something by having a solar dehydrator in your backyard. Like, it's a way to get that tiny little postage stamp garden to last all winter long. You know, and it's going to be so much better tasting and probably better for you than the stuff you find in a grocery store. You know, the way things are going, I think that it's going to be hard to pay your energy costs as time goes on.
Yeah.
So being able to find other ways to prepare your food just as good. And I remember that one the one video interview that I saw, the guys, like, people were saying the food tastes so much better when they're instead of cooking it up in the microwave oven, they cook it up in a solar heater or the solar cooker.
Yep.
And the taste is also very high quality stuff. Yeah.
This is a dream world. I mean, you're really lucky to be here, and you're
Absolutely.
doing fantastic things.
Oh, yeah.
And connecting solar drying with the folks that are doing the solar cooking.
Yeah, this is just one facet of everything that's going on here. And yeah, there are a lot of people who are against it simply because it's not part of the typical culture or the typical grid.
You can't. Thanks so much. I can't think of anything else. If I need to ask another question, I'll email.
Please do.
I got this is great.